Hello, my name is Raid Ghazi, and for my academic celebration, I'll be doing my presentation over oxovanadium and vanadilyl coordination compounds. And to begin with, I really like gemstones and minerals, and I've been into it since I was a kid. And doing some research over vanadium, I saw these two pictures here. And so this one on the left is actually a vanadium oxide crystal, which is actually very similar to bismuth in kind of like the iridescent sheen and the repeating crystal structure here. And here on the right, we have a tourmaline crystal that was actually treated with vanadium to enhance its color. Gemstones don't really come out of the earth being like perfect and super strong all the time, so sometimes they need to get treated afterwards. And this tourmaline was treated for color and to fill in some of these fissures, which is pretty cool. Uh, all right, and so obviously, which transition metal did I use? For my presentation, I obviously used vanadium, and I used the oxidation state of 4 plus. And this 4 plus oxidation state was actually taken from the base molecule of VOH2O5 2 plus. And this base molecule is kind of the molecule that all other studies based their structures off of. This is a picture here of that same structure. They actually dehydrated this structure until they got the vanadilyl ion, which is actually VO2 plus. Another thing that's kind of cool here is that they actually were able to further reduce VO2 plus with zinc, and actually were able to get colors like yellow, blue, green, and purple, which is kind of cool because when you look at the picture up here, is actually you can see the yellow, blue, green, and purple colors here in this. So this one crystal is actually able to exhibit all the oxidation states of vanadium here, so which is pretty cool. So why do we care? Well, oxovanadium salts tend to be really stable, which is why those crystals exist in the first place, and they don't just explode or something. And they actually combined with kojic acid derivatives called hydroxypyrones, they're actually able to exhibit insulin-like properties. And so these hydroxypyrones are actually extracted from plants and fungi and already exist in stable forms, but then when they're combined with vanadium and actually inserted in vivo, we're actually able to break down blood glucose. And so that kind of opens up the possibilities for producing treatments for conditions like type 2 diabetes and even type 1 to an extent as well. But mostly they're kind of targeting type 2 diabetes with treatments using vanadium here. They're also, when they're combined together, they're also very non-toxic, and they're actually able to be easily metabolized. And so, yeah, vanadium and vanadilyl, what's the difference? Well, vanadium in its neutral state is actually has an electron configuration of about argon 3d3 and 4s2, and the vanadilyl ion is actually 4 plus. So we actually lose those outer 4 electrons. So we actually end up losing the 4s2 electrons, both of them, and we end up losing 2 of the 3d3 electrons. So we're actually only left with 1 d electron at the end of it. And so when we're talking about the base structure, so when I say base structure, I mean I'm talking more about the VOH2O5 complex. And so it should be a perfect square geometry, but it isn't. So actually, when studies have shown that actually the base structure has a degenerate dxz and dyz orbitals, and so to fill in those electron spaces, they actually have to distort the bonds between the vanadium and the water by about 5 degrees. So even though the coordination number stays the same at 5, the actual overall structure is about like kind of like a distorted square pyramid geometry. And so we're looking at structure and symmetry. And so the studies that I looked at, when they actually used their own 4 different kojic acid derivatives, the structure had 2 isomers, A and B. And so the difference really was that the R groups could either bind to sites 2 and 3, or they could bind to 2, 5 in the configuration here. So A would have been 2 here and 3 here, and here would have been 2 here and 5 here. And so when we look at the original base structure, which is kind of what I based this whole thing off of, we're looking at symmetry. So they would either way, all molecules have E, which is the identity symmetry. And if it had perfect square geometry, it should have had C4V symmetry, but due to that John Teller distortion, it only has E and C2V. And then when we look at these molecules for the isomers of A and B, there really is only E symmetry here. There is no inversion because of the double bond between the vanadium and the oxygen. And so just kind of to like go into it just a little bit more, those R groups basically we're going to be S2 through SC, and here are the structures here, and this is the breakdown of what they consist of. And they would bind either way, or to either of those R groups on those isomers. But what they found was that each of those R groups actually exhibited those insulin-like properties, so they could be used to develop probably some kind of treatment for type 2 diabetes or type 1 even, maybe even produce like different variations of the drugs, maybe keep the costs down. They have to do a little bit more research and see like how effective these will be overall in treatments, especially across like different lifestyles and different people, and see like how this will react with other medications and stuff like that. But aside from that, they did it seems to be very promising. But that is the end of the presentation. I actually had a good time looking into this as well, because a passion that I have actually intersects with stuff that we're learning, and so that's always a good thing. But anyway, I'm gonna end it here, and I hope I did it right. All right, bye bye.